liberalism will collapse, not necessarily violently, but it will simply become outdated. People will move authority to a different place. This has happened before in history, in the transition from the Middle Ages to the modern age. In the Middle Ages, at the time when the dominance was of theist religions, when people had faced a decision, a problem, the practical guideline they received was listen to scriptures. Read what is written in scriptures. This will give you an answer. Now, the rise of liberalism was not a theoretical change. It was not just a matter of philosophy. It was a practical matter of how people actually make decisions in their daily lives. If previously, when they faced a problem, say who to marry, they open scriptures and look for the answer, now, with the rise of liberalism, the guidance was listen to your feelings. Go maybe at night, climb a high mountain, look at the moon, look at the sea, try to connect to yourself, see what you really feel, and go with your heart, go with your feelings. This was a practical guidance. It was not just theory. Now we move to the next stage, when people say, don't listen to your feelings. What do they know? Listen to Google or listen to Amazon or to Facebook or whatever. They understand how you feel better than you know how you feel, because they have much more information and they have much better algorithms than what natural selection gave you. They have information not only about your emails and your books and so forth, but the latest rage is that all these biometric devices that you wear on your body and that get constant stream of information about your blood pressure and your sugar levels and whatever. And of course do a DNA test and so forth and so forth. And if you have all this information and these superbly built algorithms, you can get much better answers than from your feelings, or certainly from the Bible. So we see the potential rise of a new kind of religion, a data religion. If previously God was in the center of events, and then humans were in the center of events, now data or information becomes the supreme source of authority and of meaning in the world. It starts with simple things, like you get to an intersection in the road to turn left or to turn right. Don't listen to your feelings, listen to Waze. It knows much better than your gut intuition whether to go this way or that way. Then you move to a more sophisticated level, what book to buy. I enter the Amazon website, I want to buy a new book. The first thing that happens is that a banner pops up and says, I know you. I know you, and I know that you and people like you will enjoy this book or that film. And the annoying thing is that they are often correct. They really know me better than I know myself. They can recommend the best book for me. So at present, it's still based on something quite not very sophisticated, like they know the previous books that I've read and bought, and they try to make an extrapolation from that. But now we are moving to a far more sophisticated level when the books start to read me while I read them. If I read a book on Kindle or some other electronic device, the device can know whether I finished the book, how quickly I read it, when I stopped in reading the book, which parts I read quickly, and which parts I read slowly. This is a wealth of information which conveys a very good idea about my experience of reading the book. The next stage is to connect this to facial recognition programs, and the book will know not only when I read fast or slow, but when I laughed, when I cried, when I was bored. This is an immense device that can, of course, help Amazon not only recommend books, but do many other more sophisticated things. And eventually we reach even questions like whom to marry. In the lives of most individuals, perhaps one of the most important questions is the question of who to marry. And now, instead of going to the priest and asking, Father, who should I marry? Or going to my parents, or trying to connect to my feelings and making bad decisions, I can ask Google, Dear Google, who should I marry? And Google will answer Well, I know you from the moment you were born, at least sometime in the future. I've read every email you've ever written. I've listened to every phone call you've ever made. I remember every failed date you went to. If you want, I can show you the graphs of your sugar level and blood pressure during every date and every sexual encounter you had in your lifetime. And of course, I also know your potential mates. Like if I have to choose between two people. So yes, I know him and I know him, or her and her, just as I know you. And based on all this information, and not only on all this information, but based on databases of millions and millions of successful and unsuccessful relationships, I can recommend to you at a probability of 87% that you had better go with A and not with B. And one more thing, I know you so well that I also know that you are disappointed by what I just tell you. I told you to choose A, but secretly you actually prefer B. And I also understand why you make this mistake. You give too much importance to physical appearances, to external beauty. Now, I'm not saying that beauty is not important. Beauty is very important, but you give it too much weight. In my calculations, which are based on these enormous statistical databases, I know that beauty counts for 9.62% of the success of a relationship. But your old-fashioned biochemical algorithms, because of things that happen in the African savannah, give this data, beauty, they give it 27.5%, which is far too high. So believe me, even though you feel that B is the right answer, go for A. And this is an empirical question. If enough people, enough time will consult and get a good answer that they will be happy with, then with time, more and more decisions about small things and about big things will be done in such a way. Authority will shift from the feelings, from the inner feelings of the individuals to the wisdom of these external algorithms. This is a very favorite topic in many science fiction movies and books and whatever. The usual plot of science fiction movies or books goes like this. Computers or robots become very powerful. Then there is a big war between humans and the robots, or humans and the computers. And the computers are so powerful, they know everything, they can do anything, but they don't understand the inner spirit of humanity. They don't understand love or whatever, and this is why humanity wins in the end. This is a very common plot in many of these movies because their audience is humans. So they have to sell this kind of fiction. Otherwise, people won't buy, people won't like it. But there is a fallacy here, and the fallacy is that why do you think that computers or robots will not understand the emotions, the feelings, love, whatever? It's not some otherworldly spiritual thing. It's, at least according to the life sciences, it's an algorithm. So why think that a computer will not be able to understand an algorithm? Okay, it's a biochemical algorithm. It's not an electronic algorithm, but what's the difference? The mathematics is the same. The calculations are basically the same. What's the matter how it is actually, why does it matter how it is done? The second fallacy, which is part of it, is that most of these movies, not all of them, but most of them imagine it as a kind of war between humans and computers or humans and robots, when the far more likely scenario, which we are already seeing now, is not a war but a wedding. We are talking about a merger of the two kinds of algorithms, the biochemical and the electronic, not a struggle, or not necessarily a struggle. Now, there is one question that still hovers over this entire discussion, and this is whether the life sciences are right. Does life really mean nothing more than information processing? It may seem like it when you read the latest articles and books and discoveries of the life sciences, but there is still one big hole in the story, and this is the question of consciousness, of subjective experiences. what is called in philosophy the hard problem of consciousness. We now understand very well, we know how to find correlations between particular biochemical or electrochemical situations in the mind or patterns in the brain and certain subjective experiences. But we are very, very far from being able to understand how is it that a particular pattern of electrochemical signals in the brain creates a subjective experience of love or anger or hate or whatever. The life sciences are currently, most of them, have this dogma that, okay, we don't know how to explain it, but in 20 or 30 or 50 years, with more experiments, more knowledge, we will understand how electrochemical signals are transformed into subjective experiences. But at present, in 2015, this is just dogma. Still today, we don't have a clue how electrochemical patterns can turn into subjective experiences. Maybe the life sciences have got it wrong. Maybe humans and other animals are not reducible to algorithms. This is an open question. However, in historical terms, it's not as important as you might think, because a religion or an ideology does not have to be correct in what it says in order to take over the world. We have many cases previously in history when religions and ideologies which said what we think today to be completely erroneous things about the world, nevertheless managed to take it over. In scientific terms, the story, for example, that Christianity tells about the world, how the world was created, how humans were created, how things work in the world, it's not true. It's simply not true, at least according to science. But this did not prevent Christianity from taking over most of the world. So you don't need the truth to take over the world. Similarly, with these new data religions, maybe they are based on a misunderstanding of life, but this will not necessarily prevent them from taking over the world. Thank you.